All right, guys. Hey, Paul McLean here, and welcome to the Family First Life West Coast podcast. I've got a very special guest on today, Hall of Fame producer, my man, Jon Devries. Good to have you with us.
Always good to have that applause, you know.
Well, you know, I sometimes when I'm not feeling good, John, I'll just come here and sit in the studio and I'll hit that button by myself. So it definitely does
for half an hour, right?
It does a good job in boosting your self-image. But hey, man, I'm excited to have you on, John. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you over the last several years, and you've
5 years, man.
A half decade, man. And when we first met, you know, you were just stepping into the insurance industry. You were kind of reinventing yourself, right? At that point in time, you were going into a new career. Mm-hmm. How old were you when you first started into the insurance industry, when we had that first conversation?
66.
So you're 71 now?
In 3 days.
Okay, awesome, man. Well, hey, happy birthday. I'll be the first one to say it. The reality is this, John, like, I've done this for 15 years. I've worked with a lot of producers, man. I mean, I suck at a lot of things, but I really get, you know, how to connect with the clients, how to go out there, how to increase your close ratio. I mean, I helped 40, 50 families a month for a decade. And you're one of the best I've ever heard at just meeting clients where they're at, understanding and dissecting this business, understanding and dissecting the client, and knowing what you know, how they need to be approached, how to persuade, how to influence. You're one of the best I've seen with the psychology of the client, and also just a student, like, where you know, if you've got an obstacle in front of you, man, you are so persistent at digging in and finding the right solution. So the next time you attack it, man, you attack it with a higher thought process, with more excellence, and you become great at it, dude. Right. And you've got it really, and I said this before, this will be short. We want to get into one objection. We're going to spend some time really kind of going through some of the systems and stuff you put in place, because you've done such what I would call such a great job doing, you know, creating something that's duplicatable, where somebody can get on and there's handles to it to get better. So, but we were talking last.
Listen, on the reverse flow, by the way, on the reverse flow, whenever I really get confused about how I'm going to handle something, or I don't feel confident that the method I've got is really quite good enough, and specifically the wording, I've got tons of notes, man. I look for, how did Paul handle this? What did Paul say? Because the way you word things is phenomenal too.
Well, I appreciate that, man, and I think it's that's a beautiful thing about this industry. There's people that have gone before us, and we can learn if we choose to. You know, there's so many agents that, man, they could get so much better and build such a higher skill set if they would just spend time going and through YouTube and searching whatever they're struggling with, man. Like, if they're struggling, think about it. Go to YouTube, Family First Life, think about it. You're going to have something pop up where somebody that's really kind of learned what to do and how to do it, they can go out there and you can learn from them. So the scenario that we talked about last night, you just got back from, I love what you call it, a tour, right? You're out there with just a slam schedule, appointment after appointment, seeing families for a good period of time, many days on end. And you went out there, how many families did you help? Like 20 families?
Oh, I think it was probably about 10 or 12, I guess.
Okay, 10 or 12 families.
10 or 12.
Awesome, man. And
you know, it's funny because sometimes, you know, you hear about this 10 appointments a day and stuff like that. I have to have a higher closing ratio because at 71, I can't hack the 10 a day.
I love that. Well, hey, it's worked out well, man. It's worked out well. The scenario you talked about last night when we were on the phone, when you got back in, I think it's one of the scenarios that I really struggled with, and I think a lot of agents struggle with this scenario. And it was, you were telling me about this client that you sat with, and then they had kind of a third party, was their daughter, right, that had come in and was kind of combative and almost working against the sell, working against you helping that family out. Can you kind of just go through that whole scenario? I want to just kind of sit here, listen, and learn. But I think that some of the best ways to learn is to hear kind of a mock role play. In this case, it's a real situation you dealt with, but somebody looking in can see you, know, handle that. They can see both parts of it. And as they go in and deal with that moving forward, they've kind of rehearsed it mentally, and now they're more apt to handle it like you do, which is a successful way to do it. So I'm going to pass it to you, man. Go ahead and go through that scenario.
So I went in and saw these people, and they had gotten some other insurance about literally only a couple of weeks earlier, right? And I said, okay, let me see it. Because, the honest truth is a lot of times people can get sold some insurance and they can't answer a single question about what it is.
Yeah.
What the coverage level is, what it costs. They just know it comes out every week. So I went through it with them, and I said, do you understand that it works? This is how it works, right? They go, no, nobody ever explained that to us. We don't want that, right? Blah, blah, blah. Which obviously comes up when you go in the home and you actually dig in and don't just go, oh, you bought something else? Oh, okay, we'll see you later. You know what I mean? You go, okay. That's one of the things too. You're being an advisor. If you're just being a salesman, you're going to go, oh, I got it. You already bought something. But you want that family to be better off when you're gone, when you walk out the door. So I'm like, give me the policy. Let me take a look at it for you. He was like 68. She was in her mid 60s, right? Which means on the one hand, I connected with them very well because of my age. I mean, that's one thing. I see a lot of people in their 60s and 70s, and we have a lot of reality, let's put it that way. I have a lot of reality with that age group, so that's one of the things that makes it easier. So I'm talking to these people, they're 100% on board, they're ready to roll with a couple of new policies, and their daughter comes in who's like 28, 30 years old, and she's highly protective of her parents, doesn't want anybody to be messing with them. Basically, she said, okay, so they got a couple of policies that weren't exactly right for them. And that guy obviously didn't have their best interest in mind. How do I know you're legit? Like, she was very direct, right? How do I know you're legit? Well, I handed her over by the way, I take with me copies of I'm licensed in 16 states, but I carry 6 of them in a little folder, right, that I can hand over to somebody. And I say, look, I'm licensed in 16 states. I'm not going to overwhelm you, but here's 6 current state licenses. That carries a lot of weight. Credentials is a big deal when you run into somebody like that, right? Because once they've seen enough, they feel stupid about still questioning your authenticity. You know what I mean? I've got the badge. I've got this, which is actually a COVID pin, actually. But it's got a big American flag in it. The symbology that you show people is very important, right? So she sees this. I'm not dressed in a T-shirt. You know what I mean? I look like a businessman. I look like somebody who can take care of them. I show her the credentials. I show her data on America, which is the company that I'm selling. And she's still coming at me. And I said, look, she said, I'm just going to have my parents do their own due diligence, and they're going to check all the insurance companies. And of course, if you're an experienced agent, that's never going to happen, and they're never going to get a damn thing. Or they're going to get something worse than what they got. And I said to her, look, nobody ever taught your parents life insurance. Nobody teaches this. They don't know about it. This is what I do for a living. You know what I mean? I have access to all the companies. I've done the homework. And I wouldn't be sitting here for the amount of time I've been sitting here if I didn't care what happened to this family. That's one of the biggest arguments right there, really. I wouldn't still be here if I didn't care about this family.
That's good. Right?
So in the end, she said, okay, fair enough, because people like to be right. You know what I mean? She said, okay, it's up to them. Whatever they decide is totally okay with me. That's it. Okay, so you guys decide, right? And of course, they said, okay, great, let's do the applications, right? We're ready. But there was one other aspect to this, actually, now that I look back at it, you know what I mean? Because this just happened yesterday, right? There's one other aspect, too, and that is I always try to grant importance to people. So while you could say we were in a bit of a fight almost, or an argument or something, all during that I'm trying to find things about her that I can acknowledge and use to grant her importance. right? She said she had worked with Primerica Insurance at one point, you know. So, you know, you could say, well, I don't know that company, or you could say, well, I've heard some things about Primerica too, you know. But I said, well, your parents are very lucky to have somebody knowledgeable like you to help them, you know. They are lucky people, which builds her up, right? So the trick is kind of to push your own credibility while building the other person up so they'll accept your communication. Because unless you build them up, they're not going to accept that communication, and they're going to decide they're in a fight.
I love that, man.
If you put them down in any way, you have had it.
Yeah, them or anything that they own. You know, it's like going in and bashing the policy they've got. In essence, you're saying you made a bad decision because you've got ownership of something that isn't any good. And like that is the way you put it was so beautiful that you got to, while you're building up your credibility, you're not pushing theirs down to make yours seem bigger, because that doesn't work. What you're doing is you're giving them credibility, you're making them feel good, you're connecting with them, you're highlighting them, and so now they're open to saying, you know what, I like this guy, and because I like this guy, my ears are open. Because my ears are open and my eyes are open, well, look at that badge. Look, he's working with the team, and look, that does make sense, and that state license does kind of show that he is, you know, who he says he is, and that he is somebody that is credible. That, I mean, there's so much to that really kind of helps with that whole sales process. And I think that by nature, man, like John, and I'm sure you probably agree with this, like, dude, we've all been kind of conditioned when we're kind of at a disagreement to really put our feet down and say, no, my way is the right way, and then almost do whatever we can to ostracize that other person's viewpoint, even that person that's got the opposite viewpoint. And in that, we just create high division, and there's no sale going to take place if you've got division. Division is the enemy of closing that deal. And so what you've done is, you know, she's kind of wanting to say, hey, how do we know you're not this, and this and that, and it's rooted in the fact that she's worked with another company, and who knows, maybe she worked with people there that did things in such a way that made her feel certain ways about the people like, you know, you and me that have a license, that are sitting down, that maybe the other guy was ill-intended, therefore you are. And the way you handle that whole situation, man, it's really an art. It also takes, I think, self-control when the person's saying things like, well, how do I know to trust? Not to be defensive and say, well, what do you mean, how do you trust me? Like, I've got a license and you don't, right? And you work for a company that only sold one product. I mean, like, there's so many ways that you can come across. And sometimes it's not just, maybe you didn't say those words, but how you communicated, it still made them feel like you're kind of at division with them, that you don't really value them. All she was saying is, man, I just want to be seen. I want to be a part of this. I want to show that I'm standing up for my parents. Well, now how do you connect with her? You connect with her by letting her know, man, I'm with you in this fight. We're both trying to fight for your family's protection, to make sure that they're taken care of, that nobody takes advantage of them. Me and you are on the same team with this, and I can see how you care.
Right there, yeah.
And you did the same exact thing, going back to, why would I be here still if I didn't care about your family? See, guys, that statement there is powerful, because in her mind at that moment, she could have been thinking, man, he's here and he's so persistent because he needs to get this sale. But the moment you say that, you change her perspective and how she's seeing something. You say, man, I wouldn't still be here if I didn't really care for your family. We got a lot of families that send this request back in. We're overwhelmed and incredibly behind. But I know the situation. I see the questions I've asked. I see the answers. I see what's going to happen when your dad doesn't come home. I know what that's going to look like. And by the way, I respect you immensely for being somebody that cares, that's here, because some kids, they don't want nothing to do about it. They're unaware of what's in place. You know how I know that? You know how many death claims I delivered, guys, and the kids didn't even know that there was something in place? Now, they're very grateful and excited and appreciative, but they were so in the dark about it, which means they couldn't come into the light and help out if there was ways to help out. And I really appreciate that you actually, you're here helping out with all this. I mean, that stuff, that is so essential. So if they're trying to battle, the way you win the war is connecting, teeing them up, right, while you're giving yourself credibility, and as you're teeing them up, you're communicating about yourself in such a way that gives them the right interpretation of who you are, which is, I'm a field underwriter, not a sales rep. I'm here because I care, not here for a commission. And when you do that, it's always going to lead to the outcome that you're typically looking for. So, John, I love
Right.
that, man.
And just to go along with that, and I appreciate that. To go along with that, as I said, you just look for things you can praise or commend about them. That's not corny, but just things that you can find that you can praise or commend about them. Because if that's where the communication's going, then you're going to win in the end, right? And as an agent, I think the biggest thing you have to learn is to relax and not feel attacked.
That's good.
Just relax and observe. Just relax and observe, because the opportunities to present your side and the opportunities to acknowledge them, you will miss if you get into a defensive attack mode. I was just sitting there relaxed, looking for, okay, when is she going to say something I can use?
So good. I don't know if that could have been said any better, man. That was perfect. You're exactly right. Don't be so emotional and feel like you're getting attacked that you miss out on the opportunity to form that connection and really kind of squeeze out that division that's being created in that conversation. So, man, phenomenal stuff, dude. Thank you so much for hopping on and sharing what that experience was like last night, because I believe that anybody that's dealing with this situation, when they listen to this, they will deal with it much better the next time they're presented with it, and it's because of the training you just gave, John. So thank you, man, and looking forward to getting back on this with you soon and covering some great topics, because I know that the stuff man, will make a difference for so many agents. So I appreciate you, man. Have a great day, John. And guys, hey, thank you for hopping on. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks.